Welcome back, Druids. I suppose you're here because you want to play Panther and be the fastest class in the game, with the highest burst damage in the game, and the best mobility in the game. I mean, who wouldn't be drawn to that, right? Well, let's jump in and cover everything that you need to know to become a Panther. This video is part of a Druid Masterclass, and if you haven't seen the basics video yet, please check the description so you can see all the other lessons that are available. Let me start this lesson with a big warning. Panther is extremely hard to learn and it is wildly unforgiving. I do not recommend this for new players or new druids, as it is extremely reliant on two main factors. Number one, you need to have your movement tech down to a science, and you need to be able to do it under pressure without flaw. If you haven't seen my movement tech guide, go ahead and watch that to get some tips on how to nail down your movement. Number two, Panther requires exceptional game sense and game knowledge. You need to know what you can do at any given time and who you can trade with and who you can't trade with. You need to know when you should be baiting somebody to pull out a crossbow or when you should be kiting instead of brawling. Panther is extremely squishy, and even one mistake often leads to death, regardless of how much gear you have. With that warning out of the way, let's talk about what Panther is good at: speed and damage. Panther excels at killing squishier targets like casters, rangers, and rogues. So how do we learn these dark arts? Well, my advice is pretty simple. You want to start in the 124 lobbies and gear out just for Panther until you're comfortable, and then start scaling that up until you get to HR. Agility is meta and has been for a very long time. Because of that, you can expect these kits to be very expensive to build and maintain, and coupled with a very high learning curve, sure to test your bank account while learning this. Once you get comfortable on Panther though, take the 124 chains off and then ascend into what I would consider one of the most fun builds in the game, the hybrid. Before we get there though, let's quickly talk about gearing for 124, and then we'll talk about endgame. So you can see on screen right now what I would consider one of the best ways to build for 124 lobbies. It's just kind of considered a baseline. You can reduce the rarity on certain items and then increase the rarity on others to kind of fit your budget and your playstyle. I've got cobalt leggings. Those aren't available at the beginning of the wipe, so instead you could run green pants with an epic ring to hit that 124 sweet spot. This build allows you to, in Panther form, to move at max move speed. It says 315 at the top there, but you have the perk for the 5 additional move speed in Panther form, and you're running at max speed with your weapon out at all times in a 124 lobby. That's kind of insane. So this build is very much a glass cannon, and the hitbox for your cat is actually deceptively long. You'll quickly learn how rotating your body appropriately can literally save your ass. As the wipe progresses, you can start to swap out for more advanced crafting items like Brave Hunter pants, Grey Wolf gloves, or even foul boots. Generally though, while you're learning, these can be too expensive to run on repeat. Now let's quickly talk about one of my favorite builds, the hybrid, and then we'll talk about gearing for endgame kits. So, you've got two options for hybrid. On screen, you can see the agility version of the hybrid, and then the opposite would be more strength and less agility. Either way, your stat goal is pretty basic. You want 40 of your primary stat and 25 of your other stat. You can go much higher than this, but as a baseline, I wouldn't really run this kit unless you have the 40-25 split that you're looking for. The goal of the build is to round out the class so that you can fight anything that comes your way. The downside to this build is that you're very often squishy, and you'll have a harder time dealing with stuff that a dedicated build would be able to easily handle. This is a very flexible build for solos, but I wouldn't run this in teams. If you're on a team, I'd focus more on a dedicated role. A really good stat to shoot for in both builds is physical power and maximum health. If you're going to go bear though, I would focus more on vigor than health, as it scales much further when you're in bear form. You can also just build dedicated Panther by scaling agility and physical power as much as possible, but I find this playstyle to both be very expensive and not very good late game. You basically die to 2 hits from anything, and it requires near flawless gameplay to be efficient at. It is a little bit better in team play when your job is to kill squishies and other people can take the attention away from the enemy, but it's just not that good for solos, and I would only play it on the side for fun when you just kind of feel like tearing wizards or warlocks apart. Now let's go through some general tips for Panther. I've got 14 of them for you. Number 1, know your weaknesses. You're going to realize pretty quickly that you're extremely squishy. My general rule of thumb is if I take one hit, I get out. Number 2, piggybacking kind of on number 1, to help you get out of these bad situations, you want to save your dash for your escape. You won't always have this option available to you. Sometimes you need to use your dash to gap close big distance. Sometimes you need to use it to get in and get the damage off. But generally you want to save it to get out, especially against something like a Rondel fighter where their weapon swap is near instantaneous. This can save your life. Or when you're fighting something like a barbarian that's hitting you with a war maul or a felling axe, those have tremendous slows that apply to you when they do hit you, and most of the time they can get a follow-on hit because your tail is so long. That dash will save your life. Number 3, don't be afraid to push in chicken form against projectile classes like Ranger. Everybody thinks they're a cracked crazy shot. Most people aren't. Sure, you take more damage when you're in chicken form than Panther form. It's about 20% more damage, but your hitbox is 1/3 the size of what it normally is, and your head is way, way smaller. Number 4, Panther is unique in that it runs at movement speed cap with its weapons out at all times. If you have to fight something like a beefier class like a barbarian or a longsword fighter, the best tactic that I've found is to be a total asshole and kite them until they put their weapons away in frustration, and then dash in and commit to getting damage in. And if they pull their weapon out, you just go back to kiting. You repeat this process over and over again, and this still applies even for ranged weapons. So if they pull out a crossbow, they pull out a throwing axe, go in, get some damage in, and then reset and start kiting again. It's incredibly frustrating to play against. To me, it's not fun to play, but that's how you deal with melee classes that you can't physically trade with because you just don't have the health pool available. Number 5, your swipe has around 20% more range than your right click. Number 6, you can jump and right click and you have more range than a spear stab. Try it. If you don't believe me, try it on a dummy, pull out your spear, stab it, and then do a jump attack with your Panther and right click. You have more range. Number 7, you want to swipe druids when you're fighting them just in case they go into rat form so that the bleed will kill them. Number 8, if you're hugging a target and strafing to force misses, unless you're a god, swiping is way easier to land and does almost the same amount of damage as your right click. Number 9, don't forget to use your silence. Wizards will often try to missile stuff you. When you push them, a silence will easily kill secure on everybody except for the best of wizards. Number 10, Dreamwalk is tempting to remove, but can save your ass as a Panther, specifically against PvE. Bears have a much easier time clearing PvE, but you don't really have that option available to you. So if you get caught out and let's say you get hit by a goblin or something and poisons on you, you can't go rat form to just get out of a pinch. It'll kill you. So sometimes the answer is transforming back into a human, getting that instant tick of Dreamwalk, and then kiting through all the mobs and getting a nice reset. Number 11, Panther creep is extremely quiet and players aren't used to the sounds yet. Abuse that. Number 12, wall spikes, the spikes that come out of the wall, are often too high to hit you. You can just run straight under them as a Panther, and that will either gain distance on somebody you're chasing or make space on a pursuer. Number 13, if you're nervous about landmine rogues, check those spots as a human. Dreamwalk will let you get a reset in and let you get out of really bad situations. Number 14, don't forget your spells. Because you have insane movement speed, you can really leverage your book or even a ceremonial staff for more healing to get the extra damage in that you need to make a trade more reliable. If you're really good, you can put the small heal on yourself, then use Dreamfires, and you can do damage while healing yourself, and that will really lock in the kill for you. So that's the basics of Panther. Unfortunately, Squire gear isn't really a thing for Panthers, so you can't really get good practice in at a base level outside of movement skills and kiting. Hopefully, Iron Mace increases the base damage on Panther and reduces scaling soon so that the damage numbers at the top end stay the same, but base damage is just a little bit better. If you have your own Panther advice, please leave it in the comments, and if you learned anything, please consider becoming a member to get access to all those top secret videos. Until next time, peace.